funeral trust will protect your money from Medicaid. So depending on how much money you've saved for your care, opening up a funeral trust will save money for your funeral. So what that does is something that you can set aside. You don't have to make arrangements for your funeral. You can just set money aside. It is protected from Medicaid because the federal government deems a funeral is a necessary expense. So you're not spending it on a vacation or something frivolous. You're spending it on your funeral.
When caregiving feels overwhelming and the system feels impossible to navigate, this is your guide. Here, you'll learn ways to navigate long-term care planning, find real support for caregiving, and prepare you for the road ahead. I'm your host, Lindsay Friedman, and now you're not in this alone. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Caregiver's Compass. I'm your host, Lindsay Friedman, and the founder of ltcarenav.com. And I am so excited to officially welcome you to our very first episode. This podcast was created for caregivers and families who so often say, I just wish I had a trusted guidance sooner. Clear options, honest conversations, and someone who truly understands both the practical and emotional weight of caring for an aging loved one. This episode feels especially meaningful because it aligns perfectly with the launch of LT CareNav's trusted, vetted care connections, professionals who don't just know the system, but genuinely care about the people they're providing for. And honestly, I couldn't imagine a better first guest. I'm honored to be joined by Carrie Grubanowitch, someone who embodies everything that this podcast and LT CareNav stands for: advocacy, expertise, integrity, and heart. Carrie holds an MBA and is a certified senior care advisor, a certified dementia care advisor, a licensed funeral trust agent, and the owner of Care Patrol of Rock County and Metro Rockford, and the founder of U.S. Funeral Trust. Most importantly, she shows up for families with so much knowledge, compassion, clarity, and honesty. She's also someone I'm really lucky to call a friend, and she's one of our trusted providers on LT CareNav. I can't wait for her to share her knowledge with you. So let's get started. Welcome, Carrie.
Thanks, Lindsay.
So I want to start by asking what drove you to this career of helping older adults?
So I first was doing this when I had a 9-to-5 job. My grandmother had Alzheimer's dementia, and my grandfather was a World War II vet, and he had his foot blown off, and my grandmother took care of him when he came home from the war, got married, and took care of him. And when she got Alzheimer's dementia, my grandfather said, okay, now it's my time to take care of her. And so he took care of her as long as he could, but she started exit seeking, which means an Alzheimer's dementia person wants to leave their house and start roaming around. And because they don't really know where they are because their memory is lost, my grandfather's worst fear was to have my grandmother run over by a car. And so he went to me and my mom and said, I don't want her to be run over by a car like a dog. I don't know what to do. So back then, my mom and I looked for different communities. We found one close to my grandfather's home, and we literally placed my grandmother. And this was before I became a placement specialist. The other thing is my mother died 11 years ago from cancer. So I got to experience that cancer journey with her, which ended horribly. But I understand the importance of hospice care because I, hand in hand, took care of my mom with my father with hospice care at the home. So those two people in my life touched me that when I had the opportunity to open up a business, I wanted to leverage my expertise and my knowledge of coordinating things. I used to be an IT program manager, so I would deal with a lot of different personalities, work with a lot of different things that are moving around, and I wanted to transfer those skills to families that have a lot of things going on, don't know where to start, don't know what to do. A lot of different personalities are in families, and I wanted to try to bring those skills to help them through this transition.
And with all of that, because I love that when it comes from a personal point of view, because it does, it really impacts who you are and how you care for the people who you're helping. What is the one thing you would tell people who are with family members who have dementia? What is the one thing you would look at that would say it's really time to seek a placement expert and get to that point?
I like coming in when people identify that they have a dementia diagnosis, coming in sooner than later and helping them with their journey. And again, I help families where they're at. I'm not forcing them that yes, your family member needs to go into a community for memory care. If you're taking care of them and everything's fine, that's okay. I can help supplement with in-home care or other services, but I want to help that family member so they don't get burned out, so they don't feel like I've reached my limit and I can't do this anymore. And it's now a crisis, not a planned approach that we can see where you are as a caregiver as well as the loved one that is struggling with that dementia diagnosis. And unfortunately, every day is different with dementia. One day they could be great and be very lucid and be talkative, and the next day they're shut down and the disease, kind of combats them and they're not who they are. And unfortunately, that yo-yoing upside down days, one day you're okay dealing with it, and another day you're not. And again, you're not a caregiver, you're a loved one. So it's really hard to transition from being a husband or wife or an aunt or an uncle or a niece or a nephew, a son or a daughter into that caregiver role. I was fortunate that I was able to do that for my grandmother and my mother, but not everyone's able to do that. And it's okay that if you don't feel like you have those skills, that you do place them into a community where there's people there that can care for them.
When you get families who are in this turmoil, especially if they are doing the caregiving, do you find that a lot of times they feel guilty about the decision to place? And what kind of advice would you give those folks who are debating and kind of turning it over in themselves?
So I unfortunately have a really sad story to share. In December, it was a son and daughter-in-law. His dad has dementia Alzheimer's, and they live on a farm right outside of Rockford. And they have two farmhouses, one where the mom and dad lived, and one where the son and daughter. And the son and daughter's my age; they're 50, so they're not like son, um, the wife realized, I can't take him anymore. He's, disrupting the house. He's trying to leave the home when it's cold outside. I'm concerned about his safety. We toured a community, and for the couple of days, he was great. And they said, "You know what? You found a great place for us, but we wanna keep him home for the holidays. It's December. These are the last holidays we'll have with him in the home." And I said, "You can bring him home. You can take him out of the community. He's not trapped here." And they said, we're gonna transition him in January." Again, it's the family's choice. I give my recommendations. Because he exit sought, he got up at 2 o'clock in the morning in his pajamas thinking he had to do chores in the farm. He was found outside at 5:30 in the morning when his son was doing chores, almost frozen, went to the emergency room, and he didn't make it.
Oh, that's a horrible story.
So, you have to think of, yes, you're doing your best, but if you really feel that your loved one is not in a safe place because you can't be up all hours of the day and you don't have a secured community, that's what a memory care community does. It's a locked facility. They can't leave. They can't walk out and, be outside in the bitter cold. So again, it is always your decision, but I always help the family with that journey and kind of play the devil's advocate to say, if this happened, how would you feel if that happened? And again, they're doing what's best, but sometimes they don't know what's best.
That is a really powerful story, and I think messaging for people who are on the fence of what could happen. But you said something in there that I think is really important, and I think a lot of families and even elders are going into care don't realize is you're not trapped. Do you see that sometimes families or even the seniors who have to go into care are like, okay, you're putting me in prison. I'm trapped in this building now for end of days. And how do you talk them through that and show them the options of that? That's not what this is. This is just a new place to live.
So everybody thinks that assisted living or memory care is a nursing home, and that's not what it is at all. It is your new home, and it is a home that has people there that can care for you. And again, I reinforce that they want you to be as independent as possible. They are there for you if you need help. So, and I also say it's not a prison. You can come and go as you please. You just need to sign out. And that's just from a safety perspective. If there's a fire, they know, oh, Betty's at her kid's house. We don't have to count for her. If there's a fire alarm or something that they need to evacuate, they get to decorate their apartment or their room the way that they want to. It's not an institutional nursing home, which you don't have those options. And that is what I tell clients. I want you to be in a memory care community or an assisted living community, and I'm avoiding you going to a nursing home. Nursing home is last resort, and that is only if your level of care deems it like you have a feeding tube or you need a two-person assist because you literally can't move, or, there's other criteria varying on state, but nursing home is the last resort, but everybody thinks that. I'm going to a nursing home, and no, we're going to another community that have people living there like you so you can meet new people and socialize. That's the other thing people don't realize. I'm at home watching TV, I'm fine. That's not great for your socialization. That's not good to keep your mind going. So in these communities, they have activities and they have, great food. People don't eat well when they're older because they don't want to cook for themselves and they're eating a lot of processed food, which is really bad for you. So, having good food and having great conversation at those meals and meeting new friends, that's the other thing. When you're older, your friends are passing away. So, this is a great opportunity to meet new friends and tell your old stories to new people, and they're not old stories, they're new to them. So, and hear stories from new people. So, it's the whole, socialization, medical needs, and, people think that, "Oh, I need to die in my house, and that's how it is." No, that's not how it is, and having a new lease on life and going somewhere where you can have new experiences and adventures is all part of life because we only have one life to live, and I tell that to my clients. Would you rather spend it in a new environment where you're meeting new people and you're cared for? Your care is number 1. I don't want you to be falling out of bed and lying in your bedroom because no one's there to help you.
So I am someone who I want to go to an assist like, if something happens to my husband, I definitely wanna go to assisted living. I want that socialization and to be a lady that lunches, right? But when a family comes to you and they aren't like that, right? How besides just talking through it with the family of it being the right decision, how do you actually pick the right community for a family? What's that process like for you and for them?
So when I meet with clients, I do a very detailed inventory, understanding their medical needs, but also understanding their socialization needs. So there's a couple of men that I've placed that I just want good food. That's all I want. I want good food. I want someone to come in and clean my apartment. I don't want to clean anymore. I don't want to do my laundry anymore. And that's all I want. And I'm like, "Okay." And so we go, we tour, and we do luncheon tours because I explain to the community that food is very important, and they need to taste the food and see if it's, to their liking. And then when I, help move them in, they're like, "Oh, well, you know what? I forgot that I really enjoyed playing cards, and there's this card group that, in the afternoon that I play cards and oh, there's this wee bowling thing. I used to bowl, but now I can't go to the bowling alley anymore, but it's kinda like bowling, and so all these other options become new to them, and they thought, Well, I'm not gonna do any of that. I just want good food and I just want my apartment and I'm gonna be fine. And then all these other opportunities are given to them, and then they realize, "This is fun. I'm having fun." And what I do and what Care Patrol does is I go in after a week to see how they're doing, and if there's any issues, I talk to the community and try to resolve those issues, but I want my client to know they're not alone, and I'm not just dumping them off and not, forgetting about them. I kinda kid, "I'm your friend forever. I'm gonna be coming in and seeing how you're doing because 'cause I'm going to these communities with other families, and I'm gonna pop in and see how you're doing." So, they really enjoy that and they appreciate it, and I also wanna make sure that they're thriving.
And I love that you do that, and I do know, like, all of the Care Patrol owners, it's really a mission of theirs, and I think there's something beautiful that I know that you do, but how do you offer this service to families? Because you really are, like, you become a confidant to them, you really become a support tool, and I think how that is compensated is also really beautiful, so can you tell our listeners what that is?
Yeah, so Care Patrol has a way of creating a win-win-win situation. So we are a free resource to families. They don't have to pay for us. We're for free for the communities to partner with. And if we place someone appropriately, we get a placement fee. And it's essentially an extension of their marketing budget because we're marketing for their communities for free. So we're out there talking about their communities and advocating for them because we only partner with people that we know will take care of our clients and have great social programs. And again, food's important to everyone, so has great food for them. But and then we are compensated when we place, but again, we also help families, so it's kind of a double win for us as agents, but, like, partnering with communities, they know when we bring a client, they're seriously looking, and we're not wasting their time because they have a lot of people that just come and look and don't do anything. So they know that, we're reducing their operating costs by only bringing clients that are appropriate for that community and that are serious about looking for that community, and because we're about choice, we usually give between 3 to 4 different options for clients, so they know that there are a 33% chance of placing.
I love that. I love the model that how that fits into families. I think it really is such a great support. But I wanna switch gears a little bit because the thing that you do with funeral trusts, it's absolutely fascinating. Even me being in the industry, I didn't know a lot about it, so I'm sure our families listening do. So can you tell us a little bit about what a funeral trust is?
Sure, so as a senior care advisor and as a fiduciary to my clients, not only, protecting them from their, health issues, I also wanna protect their money and do the right thing for them. So a funeral trust really leans into that financial aspect. So in majority of the states, funeral trusts will protect your money from Medicaid. So depending on how much money you've saved for your care, opening up a funeral trust will save money for your funeral. So what that is something that you can set aside. You don't have to make arrangements for your funeral. You can just set money aside. It is protected from Medicaid because the federal government deems a funeral is a necessary expense. So you're not spending it on a vacation or something frivolous. You're spending it on your funeral. You're also not transferring that burden to your family. So with Medicaid, you have to spend down your assets to $2,000. And I don't I don't know if anybody's really looked into a funeral, but you can't bury someone for $2,000. And so what this funeral trust does is it sets aside money. You're not assigned to a funeral parlor. You're not set in any state. If you land up buying a funeral trust and let's say you live in Illinois and your kids have moved to Colorado and you move to Colorado and you pass away in Colorado and you want to be buried with your kids, your funeral trust moves with you. So you can move anywhere within the United States and use that money to get buried anywhere in the United States.
That's amazing. But so for some of the people who still don't, like, understand, like, if people who might think, like, life insurance is enough, why is that a risky assumption for a senior moving into assisted living?
So, a life insurance policy is considered an asset that is not protected against Medicaid. So, if you are applying for Medicaid and you have that life insurance policy, Medicaid will make you cash that policy out and use that cash value towards your care. So, it's not saved for your funeral expenses. Just like, oh, I have a CD that I'm saving for my funeral expenses. Again, if you're applying for Medicaid, a CD is considered an asset, and so you'll have to cash that out and pay towards your care before the federal government will say, okay, now you can transition to Medicaid. So, really, a funeral trust is the only way to have money set aside for your funeral. And again, it's flexible. You can use it wherever in the United States, and you can use it at any funeral home. So, a lot of funeral homes have been being bought out by other bigger companies. And I've heard in the Rockford area that people that have pre-bought their funerals at the family-based funeral company because they were bought out by a corporation, they're like, "Oh, we don't have any records of that." So, yeah, so it's really frustrating to them because they thought they pre-bought their funeral at this family-owned funeral company, and so they have to now fight with a lawyer to get what's really theirs. With a funeral trust, you don't have to deal with any of that because any reputable funeral parlor will take that as payment, and again, you get your funeral paid within 2 days, which is really nice. You don't have to even show a death certificate. Literally, you pick a funeral parlor, the funeral literally sends in the claim to the funeral trust, and they get paid. It's so super easy.
That's great. Now there might be people of asking because Medicaid, the big thing is that 5-year look back, right? That's like that scary 5-year look back. What if a family is looking like 3 years out and they can see Medicaid's coming? Is a funeral trust still an option?
Absolutely, because it's considered a necessary expense. It's like food. You need money for food. You need care. Unfortunately, we're all dying. None of us are not dying, so it's gonna happen to all of us. And, what they don't wanna have happen is if your family can't pay for your funeral, that expense actually goes to the state for a state funeral, and that's just a burial. So, again, you're showing that you're looking forward and trying to reduce the burden on the state and to have your funeral paid for. The other thing that's really neat about funeral trusts is depending on the state, you could actually buy a funeral trust for your spouse to help with that spend down. And also, you can purchase a funeral trust for your children, your adult children, and their spouses. So, depending on what state you live in, you could do that and help with that spend down to then get onto Medicaid. So then, because some people have not been able to save, to give an inheritance to their children. So a funeral trust is kind of an inheritance because you're giving them a gift of your estate would not have to pay for the funeral. So it's kind of a gift to the grandchildren that, they don't have to pay for their funeral. I'm paying for your funeral in advance. So that's a nice thing to be able to gift something to your family instead of nothing to your family because you have to spend on your money and care due to the Medicaid. Look back and for the $2,000 that you can only have when you are a Medicaid recipient.
Yeah, I think this is such a great tool and asset that's available. But I know you keep saying like by state by state. Are you able to sell these funeral trusts nationwide or how does that work?
Yep. So we are certified nationwide, and I have a spreadsheet that says how much you can apply for a funeral trust and if it's applicable for just you or you and your spouse or you and your spouse and your children, or you, your spouse, your children, and their spouse. So again, every state is different. And so I have a spreadsheet that I would just need to understand where you're living and where you're buying it. And then I would explain what the possibilities are for you.
And I can tell to everybody listening that if this sounds like something that will work for you and your family, that you should definitely give Carrie a shout out, a call, because she is amazing. And we'll make sure all your details are below. So, just because we're getting close to our time, what do you want a family to know more than anything? If you have like one piece of advice or one thing you want to tell them, what would that be?
Well, what I would share with them is because I am a certified senior advisor, a placement specialist, a certified dementia practitioner, as well as understanding funeral trusts, because I just support an area in Wisconsin and Illinois, doesn't mean that you can't call me to just get some information and start understanding what's available to you. And I can also refer you, if you're not in my area, to other specialists, but to start the conversation now and to understand what your assets are. And does it make sense to have a funeral trust now instead of, later and forgetting about it? Because again, everybody thinks clearer when you're planning, but when you're in a crisis, you're not thinking. You're reacting to things. And when people react to things, you're not necessarily making the best decisions. And in a planning mode, you can, talk, have conversations, think about it, have other conversations, and then think about what's best for you and your family. But again, it's always good to have that in your mind of planning instead of reacting. We don't like reacting because we make decisions that are not necessarily the best interest of us. And, everybody doesn't like being in a crisis. I know I don't.
No, I think that's all really great advice. And I am so glad that I got to do our first podcast with you, Carrie. And we will make sure all of your details are in the description. And you can also find Carrie on LT Care Nav. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Lindsay. Appreciate it.
All right, that's a wrap for today. Until next time, remember, you're not alone. Take things one step at a time, stay centered, and trust your compass. See you next time on the Caregiver's Compass.